Hello, this is Harry Payton, host of Irvington Now, and we are here again with another segment of the Irvington Now show. As always, I'd like to remind our audience that Irvington Now is about the vision of the Honorable Tony Voss, who's the mayor of Irvington, and his vision is for a cleaner, safer, and better Irvington. So, towards that, we have another segment about one of the great things that is going on in Irvington. I'm here with the director of the Irvington Housing Authority, Mr. David Brown. Hello, Mr. Brown. Now, before we begin, you're the director of the Irvington Housing Authority.
Yes.
Could you give the audience some background of yourself and I guess some of the duties of what the director does for the Housing Authority?
No, I don't want to go back too far, but obviously I've been here 14 years, and prior to that I was in Camden and Long Branch Housing Authorities, and it's almost, it's something I tell kids, and I tell my kids all the time. I got here by accident. I was serving. I was the NAACP president in Long Branch and a commissioner of Housing Authority, and then something happened literally overnight. My life changed, and at 29 years old I became the executive director of a very difficult situation in the Housing Authority. But I've been involved in many things over the years from the NAACP. I've been on the national board for NARO, which is the National Association for Housing and Redevelopment Officials. I've won over 50 awards from them. Been on the board, from trustee board of the church. We just recently built almost about a $4.5 million church down in Long Branch. Been very involved there. Been the president for the New Jersey State National Forum for Black Public Administrators. So I have been. I like to think I've been giving my life for service.
Yes.
And so that's basically my small background. But I will say this: that I graduated from Norfolk State University undergrad and went to Rutgers for my master's.
Yes, and Norfolk, if I'm not mistaken, that's a historically
Black school,
college.
yeah, historically.
Yes. University, not colleges.
University,
University. Yes.
Now, yes.
Yes, but that's great, and you do have an extensive background. I happen to be, I guess, maybe a little familiar with some of the organizations only because I have a career in housing
Yes.
myself, and NARO is one of the big, I guess you would say, governing agency over housing authorities throughout the United States.
Yes.
And to win an award, you always go against the other states. So that talks to the determination of yourself, your staff, the commissioners, and even the residents of the Irvington Housing Authority.
Yes.
So that's great. Now, as far as the director, I know there are things like musical director, keeps everybody in tune. How is the director's position? What exactly?
It's funny. I've never used that comparison, but it's almost similar. There's pieces everywhere where you got different sections of the band that you got to put together. And here we've got, you've got the maintenance, you got the security, you've got the housing, you got the Section 8 voucher program.
Yeah.
I mean, so it is a very difficult, and Irvington is a very difficult situation because just overall it's in between Newark and it's borders right near Orange and East Orange and just Essex County, and just there's so many people who are of low income or poor who we serve, and oftentimes a lot of the people we serve come to us homeless, come to us without any resources and expect us to help them, and it is very difficult because HUD wants us to run like a business.
Yes.
HUD has cut 20%. If they say you need $1 to run the housing authority, they'll give you 80 cents. And then you say you got to make up the difference. And then if we get people that come to us that can't afford, what do we tell a mother crying with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kids? Or what do we tell a senior citizen who's given their life to the country, or given their life to working for people, and gets, I don't know, whether it's $1,000 or $2,000 a month as a senior citizen, and tell them we can't house them. And then places say, well, we want that same $1,000 for your rent. So it is a very difficult situation. And then just overall in urban America, there's a lot of situations here where there's crime and other things that affect us. So it is not a very easy situation, but I wouldn't trade the opportunity for anything in the world.
Yes, fantastic, and that's a good scenario. You described it, how you pulling all the pieces, because I always and again, like you said about it being funny, people don't always think highly of, let's say, the garbage man. You know, the garbage man, oh, right behind that smelly truck, you know, it's not a good job, I wouldn't want it. But without the garbage man, you know, I know I've been involved in some garbage strikes where they didn't pick up the garbage. It becomes messy very quickly, and you realize the importance of each person as far as the layer of the whole person. So that was a good way to describe it.
You know, and I laugh, and it is just good to talk when people talk about that, because we don't realize that, wow, you talk about the garbage man. Yeah. And there's so much situations where it relates to housing or whatever, but I tell people we lost one of our greatest Americans in Martin Luther King in a garbage situation where he was fighting for those in Memphis. But I won't preach to you today.
Yeah, no, that was all right. That was amazing. You absolutely said it, because it was that situation where they were protesting how they were treated.
Yes.
That was you know, that's something how everything is as part of the puzzle. Now. I know that they now have changed, being a part of the housing authority in a neighboring city. They changed the terminology from Section 8
to Housing Choice Voucher Program.
Right, yes. Right. And I think, you know, a lot of times in the past, they had certain names for it. And people don't always realize that Section 8 was called Section 8 because it was Section 8 of a certain proposal,
yes.
And it just became the name that we now refer to.
Yes.
So they wanted to destigmatize the program, take that terminology, because when you hear Section 8, you
imagine something negative.
Right, yes. Right. So now that when you hear a more positive housing choice voucher, it sounds more like, hey, something that's very, has a great name. So I like the change, you know, and as I was always taught, and as you mentioned, anyone can be down in life, but we shouldn't look down on a person. So now, as far as your program, you had spoke about the difficulty in sometimes meeting everyone's needs, but how many vouchers or how many people do you serve?
Well, we have about 670 public housing units, so we house over 2,000 residents there. But then we have we only have about 250 housing choice vouchers, but we have over 400 portabilities coming in. So when you look at those amount of units, and most of them are family units, there's probably 3,000 or 4,000 more that we have. So we're directly responsible for almost 1,500 families in Irvington, which equates to about 5,000 people that we're paying rent directly for. You know, I can honestly say we're probably, I know that Maple Gardens is large, but we probably pay rent that affects the taxes of the city or the township, more rent for anybody in the whole entire township. Wow. We pay rent. We pay over, I think, roughly $400,000 a month to landlords for people's rent a month.
Right, right. That's substantial. Again, that's a good comparison, because that's a huge complex, the Maple Gardens. And I didn't know that you guys were that large an agency. Again, you know, you just don't know the numbers, because the one thing that's important about the program is that it's not a program where a person labels across their head that they are part of a certain program.
And that's a good thing, because it's really hidden. They don't know it. I mean, I would love to get those certificates. The difficulty about portability is people don't understand that if HUD gives us $80 to administer the program, when it's ported in, HUD cut it to $70, and then we only get 80% of that from the port in authority. So we get roughly, no, it was $60. So we roughly get $48 a unit for administering that portability. So it is, they've made it so difficult.
Yes.
And wonder why we have problems in America.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. The funding has definitely been cut. Now, I want to look directly at my audience, and you know, I don't know if anybody noticed this, and you know, a sharp eye would have noticed it, but I guess I'll point it out in case you noticed it. I was sitting here with my glasses on top of my head, but I also had glasses on my eyes. That's how it is sometimes when you have glasses and you can't find them, and they were on top of my head. So I'm putting them in my pocket, so I won't embarrass myself anymore, because I found my second pair of glasses. Life is funny. I laugh at myself all the time. Now, how many staff? I guess, you know, it takes a
roughly 30 staff. We at one point, when I first got here, we had over 50. And with HUD cutting, but that does not include, we contract that out for security, and we hope to be doing some other things, and maybe even contracting out for maintenance to be able to better serve the residents better.
Right, and that's a great cut, you know, from 50, almost half your staff,
Yeah.
and again, having been associated with the Housing Authority, I know the same thing happened with the Housing Authority I'm associated with. Those of us who are left, we have to do more with less.
Yes.
And you know, it becomes a challenge, but again, we oftentimes consider ourselves lucky that we're still left, because many good people are gone. You know, they no longer have a job because of the cuts from the federal government. And the reason that's important is that the audience should know that you should make it your business to know how your local politicians and the politicians in the good state of Washington, D.C. are voting on these programs, because these cuts are affecting families. And Director Brown has spoken about it as far as his staff, and again, because I'm associated with the Housing Authority, our programs are being decimated as far as staff. And the less staff you have, the harder it is to administer to the people you have to administer. So that's just my day of preaching. We both have a great religious background. I respect you deeply, and I know that I see your association with your church, that we sometimes will preach, but it's all good things. It's good things that people should know. Now, another thing I'd like you to discuss with our audience, you have help in running the program as from some individuals, I believe, that volunteer their time, and they help make decisions in how the agency is run.
You know, we have a board of commissioners. We have 7 boards of commissioners, and then how the board of commissioners works. 5 are, and 1 is appointed by the governor. Now, for example, here we have the chairperson is Anna Scott, and she is the governor's appointee, and she's the chairperson. And then there's Carolyn Jenkins, who's the vice chair. She's a council appointee. There's Annette Beasley, who is one of our newer commissioners, and she's a council appointee. We have Joanne Bennett, who's a resident commissioner, who's also a council appointee. We have Darlene Brown, who is the mayor's appointee. She's one of the newer commissioners. And Robin Cox, who's also a new commissioner, and she is the council appointee. And the last and the newest is Sean Evans. He is a council appointee.
Okay, great. And again, it's good to know, and it's because I'm familiar with it, these people take up their valuable time and expertise, because there is no salary.
Well, you know, they don't get paid, and their job is to set policy. And oftentimes it's important for people to know they don't run the housing authority. In that sense, their job, and that's what they mandate me to do, to run the housing authority. And they set the policies that I must adhere to in running the authority. And it's difficult some days too. There's no question about it.
Yeah, because in everything, you know, that's why I believe you have an odd number of representatives, because it's decision making. If it's even, then you can have a tie, and you get nowhere with a tie. A tie is, you know, that old expression like kissing your sister. It's not very much fun, you know. So, well, it's good to know of your commissioners. I happen to be very familiar with one of them, and that is your chairperson, Anna Scott. I served on the Board of Education with her, and I always liken her to a quiet giant. I think the 3 years that I served on the board with Anna Scott, she never raised her voice. She never.
Yeah, no, she's very, very, very respectful. She's, I mean, it's just something else to have somebody that you can depend on like that, and she will tell you when there's something wrong, and she's understanding of the people that we serve. And one thing you got to understand, I think we talked about the amount of residents we have, and this is what's real important. We have 670 units, but only 125 of them are family. The other 500 and something units are elderly units. But there's a new thing distinguished now, that elderly disabled. So I have a lot of residents who are between the ages of 21 and 62 who are not senior citizens. So you get a lot of people, they have a disability. So oftentimes we have a lot of people who have some type of disability, and it affects them in different ways, and coming to meetings it affects them, and sometimes they don't understand. So there's a lot of issues that we deal with that other people don't deal with.
That's a good point. And again, again, just my background, I know it's very difficult when you intermesh the age groups. Is, you know, and because a younger person thinks like a younger person.
Yeah, and then they want to hang out, and
Yes.
older people don't want to hang out. So
Yes.
you might see 25 and 35 years old people just sitting out around the property
Yes.
because they live there.
Yes.
And they want to stand out, they want to hang out, they don't
Yes.
want to sit in their apartment, they're not senior citizens.
Yes.
So there's been a very difficult situation to
Right.
deal with.
Right, that's good to know. And again, as we came up today, it's a very impressive building. You know, the building is well maintained, and yeah, I'm a housing inspector. I tell people my fault is that I see all the different deficits. You know, like the sidewalks that are not taken care of. But you guys passed my inspection, so I didn't say anything wrong with this
Yeah,
building.
thank you, I appreciate that,
Yes.
definitely.
Thank you. Yes, well, right now what we'll do is we'll take a brief break. As I always do, I encourage people, you know, tell a friend or neighbor. It's important that we know this information. Sometimes you may pass by the location, and we'll give it before the end of the show, and you just don't know what goes on here. Just let them know, and they can get some information from the tail end of the show as we come back. See you in the field.